Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Process Live. This podcast is an offshoot of the docuseries Process, which highlights creatives in a variety of industries such as music production, puppet fabrication, outdoor sports, apparel design, filmmaking, and everything in between. Process Live is a podcast that is produced by us, Pattern Integrity Films, for Pharcyde TV. And in this episode, the Future of Film 3, we'll chat with Stephen Murray of Bingeable and the Film 3 squad. And then also, if there's any questions, right, Pippin, go ahead and put them in the comments. So, Stephen, welcome. It is so great to see you again.
Great to see you as well. Yeah, it's been a week, I guess, a little over a week and a half now. Yeah, it's time. I've lost all concept of time, so it's great to see
Same.
you again.
Yeah, it feels like it was just yesterday, but also like a long time ago. So
Yeah,
it's kind of wild.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's jump into it. I feel like after meeting you, I have so many questions. I just want to know so much about, your background, how you got into filmmaking and of course film 3, but also just I don't know. Let's kind of just hear the cliff notes a little bit on that part of your life. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that you started in the music industry. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I from the age of 10, I tell this story all the time. From the age of 10, all I ever wanted to do was make movies. I just became obsessed with film as a kid, and while all of my other friends were off playing video games and doing all these things, I was learning about cinematography and learning about the art of storytelling and just really diving into it deeply. I had in my mind being a filmmaker, for the majority of my younger years. And then I bought a guitar and ruined everything. Just went down a path that was not my intention, but still, I was very fortunate. I actually signed as a songwriter in Nashville, Tennessee, when I was, I guess, 19 years old. I was still at school at Indiana University studying visual communication. That was my track that I was studying. But I got the opportunity to be a songwriter down in Nashville, and then wound up making records and doing stuff as an artist as well. But that's where, honestly, what I'm doing today is there's a direct narrative thread, a through line through all of that, starting from signing a publishing deal that was absolutely awful, and just realizing that it was a really, really terrible deal, and then saying, I'm never going to make that mistake again. I'm never going to just hand over my work to somebody again. And then, somebody comes along with a record contract. I'm like, ooh, I want one of those, so I signed an even worse deal, but it really taught me a lot about how the business worked. And it taught me that the entertainment industry's power comes from its ability to market and distribute. It values the ability to market and distribute over the ability to create. And while at that early age and at that early time, there was not much I could do about it, on a macro scale, I could try to do something about it on a micro scale. And so I wound up with a little bit of money from a record deal, and with some friends starting a record company, and helping other artists and trying to do it in a very different way. And that was the beginning of the journey that led me to Bingeable today.
No kidding. Wow. So then Bingeable, I guess we can dive into that right now if you'd like. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. It's I was thinking it was a streaming platform for films, but is it also for music? Is that right? Or just, yeah, tell me.
So we have we have an approach towards music. It's a little bit different than just a straight up kind of music streaming platform, and I can get into that in a second. But at its heart, the way that I describe Bingeable is that it's a marketing platform where distribution is the organic result of the marketing. And that really comes from all the way back to those years I'm dating myself, but in the early 90s when I started that record company. where we used what we call street team marketing to market our records. We had no money. We were just a bunch of kids, we didn't know what we were doing. And so, to us, if we sold, 20,000 copies of a record, we were living the dream, man. We were driving Honda Accords, eating at Red Lobster, we were killing it, absolutely killing it back in those days. So it wasn't really about kind of creating mass scale. It was about doing things in a way that was legitimate, organic, and rather than doing the typical sort of record deal, it was more like a joint venture where we put people in our own recording studio and we cut the records and we worked with the artists. And then instead of, the traditional model, which I won't get into how record deals work because I don't know how long this show is, but it's the traditional record company deals are heinous. And the vast majority of artists who signed record deals, they never actually recouped on those deals ever. It was always, they made their money through advances, through touring, through licensing, things like that. That's where they made their money. The record deals were so upside down that it was basically guaranteed to technically lose money on the record. And that was, again, by design. And Hollywood took that and takes that model up to another level. But fundamentally,
but wouldn't you say, do you mind if I interrupt you for a second? I mean, that model also, it's just sort of in my mind that model, it's not even just about like not being able to recoup it. It's like, we're talking ruining artists too.
Oh, sure.
I mean, if you can't pay that bill, like if you can't pay your, the fees and everything that you owe back to the record company, they'll just cut you loose.
Well, look, it's really simple math, right? So here's how it works. When you sign a record deal, back in the 90s, it was a little bit, it was more like this. It changed over time, and the more power you had, you could structure your deal a little bit differently. But the general rule was you would sign a deal on average for around a 10% royalty. And that 10% royalty, this is how it works. I have to recoup all the costs of production, marketing, manufacturing, sometimes distribution fees, depending on the deal. I have to recoup all of that out of every dollar that comes into the record company. Okay. But I don't recoup it out of every dollar. I recoup it out of every 10 cents of every dollar, because what was supposed to come to my recoupable account is just 10% of that dollar. So I'm recouping all those costs from 10 cents out of every dollar. And they're every time they manufacture a new run, every time they do all this stuff, they're just stacking costs on top of it. So you're chasing these costs 10 cents at a time. And it's just virtually impossible to recoup.
Yeah.
And they charge for marketing. And again, there's no auditing. How do you know what they really did? It's there's a parallel in this to film and television. It's very similar, but in music, that's the way it worked. So look, the first rule that I ever learned in the music business was that the top 1% of every label's roster funds the bottom 99%. And while I thought I was an amazing artist, obviously, I wasn't in the 1%. There's no way. There's just no way. The math was terrible. There was no way that I would ever be able to eclipse that, get even close to that 1%. So that's why I began putting as much of my focus into building a record company and doing it myself. And we did all sorts of cool stuff that was kind of unique. We started a magazine. We did a lot of things that were pretty bold back then. But it was all around that idea that if the entertainment industry's power comes from the ability to market and distribute, the only way we can fix it is to replace that system with something that is controlled by the creators themselves. And what better system than the fans that you have becoming the marketing energy behind your project. And that, even back in the 90s, when we were it was all analog. There was no digital. There wasn't even an internet when we when we started. We had to do it just very organically. But then as that progressed, it became clear that there was something to this idea of building an audience, building a community, and then turning them into your marketers was just a really powerful idea. And that started with that little record company and that little magazine, and then sold those, moved to New York City, started another record company with some pretty famous guys. And then that got us straight to the digital music revolution. And And man, has it been running ever since.
Right. So then you've got a like a 30-year run almost on some of these concepts that are kind of new and people are starting to wrap their head around today.
Yeah,
It's
I was
just like
hoping you
this.
would. I was hoping you wouldn't do the math, but yeah, it's a
It's
30-year
all right.
run. Yeah,
I only know the math because I'm from the same spot, the same era that
yeah,
you're talking about.
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, look, it was, I've always, for better or worse, I took all of it as a moral stance that it was just to have a system that is specifically designed to make you hate what you love, to put you in a machine and just grind you through it, to the point where there's not much left. And the few who have the stamina to go through it. And I was touring, couple hundred days a year. I mean, like it was intense. And it's an incredibly difficult business. It's an incredibly difficult business to be in. And I was not only recording and touring, I was running a record company with my friends back home. So it was intense for a long, long time. I eventually, realized that as an artist, I finally got tired of wanting to be better at something than I was, and knowing that it was never going to really become the thing, and then realizing very quickly that my real passion actually was trying to solve this problem for creators. I have this mission statement that I reference all the time and still do to this day, that I firmly believe that if you change the world for creators can change the world. And that became my mission, even back in those early days, before I could even clearly articulate it, that was what I was trying to do.
wow. Yeah, I mean, that statement definitely hits home. I think you know I don't know, my there's so much swimming around in my brain right now, just from everything that you said, that it's just look, I think, what was it, yesterday I finally saw the news that the actors strike ended, after how many days? So
140 something days. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's a huge setback. That's a
Yeah.
huge setback for entertainment.
Yeah.
Really. So within that time period, or this gap of time now that we're going to see, I think prior to oh gosh, I want to say prior to hearing that news yesterday, there was like an article that came out that said that movies and TV kind of will start coming back 2025. I don't know if that's
Oh no,
a
that's
reality.
yeah. I mean, the stuff that they had in the can will start to come out, but there's going to be an entertainment desert in 2024,
Mhm.
where there's just not going to be a lot of new stuff. It's very hard to make these things, especially in the old system, because it's slow, it's cumbersome and expensive, and so yeah, they've got stuff that they've been holding on to that they didn't want to release because they knew they couldn't get the talent to promote it, which, by the way, that's a big clue, right? That's a really, really big clue. Who has the power here? Because they didn't want to release those movies without the talent promoting it, because the talent couldn't promote it while they were on strike. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, doesn't that tell you
it says a
everything you need
lot.
to know? That the real power is not just the talent, but the relationship that the talent has with the audience. I say this all the time. When you go to the movie theater and the Paramount slate comes up, people don't cheer. They don't go, "Oh, thank God, a new Paramount movie." Right? That's not why they're
Right.
there. Right? They are
Hmm.
there because of the story. They are there because of the talent that they already have this emotional relationship with. There's a reason why when you go to Netflix Instagram profile, or you go to Ryan Reynolds' Instagram profile, look at the difference in number of people who follow each, right? Because nobody cares about Netflix. they care about Ryan, right? They had,
Yeah.
that's an emotional relationship. And I recognized that very, very early on in my career, that it's it's the creators who have the relationship with the audience. Therefore, if you can simply harness that relationship, turn them into not just passive consumers, but active amplifiers of your work, then you can replace those systems of marketing and distribution. You don't need them anymore. And it's no more 90 cents of every dollar, 95 cents of every dollar going to some system that of middlemen. It's now it's your business, not their business.
Right. And who, you've been singing praises about this particular person that's doing an incredible job with their engagement with their audience, and that person is
Taylor Swift.
You know who I'm talking about? Yeah, Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
so
I was very fortunate to when I in 2007 I was working on a project at MTV, and I kind of had this moment where I was like, there's an opportunity here to do something. And I essentially wrote down the business plan for Bingeable in 2007. There was no way to do it. I knew there was no way to do it. And frankly, I didn't want to do it. It seemed overwhelming. I even had a conversation like, the last thing I want to do is build that, because it just seems so daunting. But there was a piece of it that I knew we could do. The idea of harnessing an audience to become the marketing energy, to become the amplifiers behind a project. It was in 2007, there was this new thing called social media. They were just starting to kind of call it that. There had been, there had been MySpace and things like that, but nobody really knew what that was. Nobody really had quite figured it out. Well, suddenly this concept of social media was becoming really, really prevalent. And what I looked at that, I was like, man, this is street teams. This is street team marketing, but instead of, one-offs where we're getting a kid in Ohio to we're giving a kid a baseball hat with our record company logo on it and saying, go tell all your friends you're in the record business, and get them to buy CDs. And when your friends come to the show, you're going to be behind the velvet rope with a lanyard on and saying, I'm going to go have a beer with the band. I'll be out later, boys. See you. Like that, kind of giving them that juice, giving them the ability to feel like they were part of it. That was how we marketed all of our records. Well, all of a sudden with social media, we could do that at scale. We could do that in a massive way. And so my business partner and I created something called Amplifier, which was essentially an agency model where the whole thesis was, if you empower your followers on social media and if you align with their interests, and if you give them tools and motivation, they will go do so much marketing for you that you can reduce your traditional marketing spend. That was the thesis of Amplifier. We pitched over and over and over to just, rooms full of guys in suits across the table looking at us like we were absolutely insane. And then through various twists and turns and a couple of different deals that we were putting together, we wound up getting our first real official client, and that was Taylor Swift. In when she was very young, still.
No kidding.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, she was our first client, our first official big client, right? I mean that we were able to do some stuff for. And look, I always am very, very clear about this. I want to make sure everybody knows. I did virtually nothing to help Taylor Swift's career, but she kind of gave me mine. Watching her do what she did from afar. I mean, I was in New York, and I wasn't in Nashville, so I was in New York and LA going back and forth. So our interactions were minimal, but the seeing her do what she did, so I get mad at people who say she was just intuitive. That's bullshit. She was just smarter than you. She was smarter than me. She's still smarter than all of us. There's a reason why she's the biggest artist in the world. And it's because she's smarter and she works harder and she's more talented. It's pretty straightforward, right? I've never seen anyone like it, even to this day. So it was a huge blessing to be able to test out some of these ideas, with this extraordinary artist. And then we just kept doing it. We kept going on and on with more and more artists and brands and media companies. And we just kept testing out these ideas of how you take an audience from passive consumer to active amplifier. and how you harness that, how you turn that into a marketing strategy, how you can use that to replace some of the very expensive, inefficient marketing in the traditional models. And we just kept doing it over and over and over again. But to be perfectly honest, it was a Trojan horse. My goal was never to build an agency. What a nightmare. Clients suck most of the time. So that was never the plan. Honestly, what I wanted was the very industry that I intended to disrupt. I wanted them to pay us to develop the tools of their disruption. And that's what we did. And Amplifier is still running today in New York. And you know, it's not, you know, it was never meant to be big. It's small, but it's an amazing product that we created that is still being used. But it was always meant to eventually power Bingeable. And that's where we are today.
No kidding. Wow, that's so cool. What a hell of a story.
30 years, that's a lot of opportunity to do a bunch of stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's been a wild ride. Yeah.
But you were meant to disrupt. Like, that's the cool part, is that it's not like it's not like you had a moment a couple of years ago and realized, wait, you know, all this is wrong. It's like you've known the answers from the start.
Well,
you know?
I've known the problem. I would not go so far as to say I've known the answers. That has been a nonstop, hapless, flailing process of just trying things. But I think understanding that core thesis that the most powerful relationship in the world is that between creators and their fans. And everybody who ever attempted to try and harness that, they were always trying to harness it for their business instead of creating something that allowed the talent to replace that business with their own business. And that, I think that, you know, coming as an indie artist, and, you know, I was signed to a major label during that brief part of my career, but you know, I've always had kind of an indie attitude and indie perspective, you know, a little bit punk rock in my heart, I think. And so it was always about, you know, I think I said it already, you know, it was a moral thing. It just, the system as it was built felt so wrong that I set out to try and fix it. And lots of failed attempts, a couple of things that worked really well. You know, a couple of coattails that I was able to ride on because we were in the right place at the right time, got us to the point where now we've built something that is we think a really important solution, especially for independent film and television producers and financiers. And 2024, now that this strike is over, is going to be a really exciting year for us.
Yeah, I can't wait. Honestly, I don't know. I've been both my husband and I have been really excited about just this whole movement for the last, I don't know, like, I think we haven't been a part of it as long as you guys have, but we launched our docuseries in July of this year. And I think we had done a Film3 piece that was more like a short commercial, like test kind of a thing, just to sort of be able to prove, like, I think to ourselves that we could do it. But outside of that, it's like, I know you guys have been, and you guys meaning like you and Jordan and the squad, you guys have been riding this wave for much longer than us. And
well, Jordan longer than me. I came across Jordan and she'd been doing it for a year, you know, talking about a lot of this stuff. It just so happened that our messages really aligned. I saw in her, you know, somebody that was out there banging the drum that I felt, you know, needed to be hit, and doing it in a way that I was amazed by, fascinated by. And the more I got to know her, I mean, now she's like a little sister. I just absolutely adore her. And you know, the squad, you know, Film3 would not exist without the squad, and Jordan's effort from the beginning to give filmmakers and creators a voice to tear down the barriers between what this industry says you can create and what you say you can create, and create as she said, her whole mission was to create a better future for filmmakers. And man, that once I heard that, I said I was in. And so, yeah, I've been part of it now for, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really fascinating. Anytime I think about it or write about it or anything, and I kind of compare and contrast like what's going on in Hollywood, and I start to think like, oh, well, it's sort of like, it's like, oh, it's Hollywood reinvented, but it's none of those things, because it feels like Hollywood is never, or the music industry or the film industry or any of those industries has never really reached their full potential yet, because of the gatekeeping and like you were saying, people saying what, this is what you can create and this is what you can't create, and just all the barriers and the exclusivity. And when you watch the Oscars and it's like, oh, when is there going to be another best female actor? Or when is there going to, and it's just it seems like there's been plenty of time to kind of have the Academy and beyond have all these systems really kind of get their shit together and realize like the time is now. The time is actually several years ago, to like just wake up and start being a way more inclusive place. And that's not just for like, oh, we need to be telling stories like, opening up the doors for, indie filmmakers to come in with their awesome stories. It's like all of it needs to change. I don't know. I'm sure you got a reflection on that, but.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, Film3 at its heart is I think a lot of people got hung up on kind of the technology part that drove a lot of the early sort of conversations about Film3. It comes out of the Web3 movement, right? So that's where it came from. My philosophy and my focus was that it is much more of a moral construct than it is a technological revolution. In fact, my little catchphrase that I use is that Film3 is less about new inventions and more about new intentions. That it is a group of creators and builders coming together and saying, we're just going to do it a different way. We're going to take the industry, which currently values the ability to market and distribute more than the ability to create, and we're going to flip that on its head and create systems that value the creators and the community that they build more than the pipes that deliver their work. That is Film3. Is there technology underneath it? Of course. Are there lots of really cool, innovative things, that new formats and new delivery systems? Of course, sure. That's killer. But you don't need any of that to revolutionize the industry. What you need is an ideology that simply says, we value creators and audiences more than the pipes that deliver their work. How did this conversation start? Studios were delaying the release of their movies because the talent couldn't go out and promote it. Well, why is that? Because it's the talent that has the audience, right? That's why they need the talent to go and promote. Well, they just showed their hand, right? They just said, okay, that's the real power. Well, guess what? If you create a system that allows them to harness that for their own business interests, then you don't need the other system anymore. Right? So you're never going to fix that system. That system works the way it's worked for 100 years. Good luck getting them to embrace things like transparency and paying creators out of gross revenue and sharing profits. Like, no, that's always going to work the way that it has worked. You need to have at least an alternative. And I'm not saying that you aren't still going to see, look, I say to every actor I meet, if you get cast in a Marvel movie, take it. Take the check. Yeah, awesome. Go. If a streamer is going to pay you slightly more than you normally would get paid to be in a movie, fine, go do it. But if there's stuff that you care about, if there's stuff that you believe is a story that's worth telling, and the system is not giving you the opportunity to do it, you need to have an option. And I without getting into any specifics, because we're holding off on a lot of these announcements until we're a little bit further down the road. But, you know, one of the projects that we're looking at for release in 2024, this is going exactly to what you were just saying. They were essentially told, even though the movie is by all accounts, by everybody who's seen it, an absolutely breathtaking, powerful, award-worthy film, nobody will take it because they're like, it just doesn't have an audience. It doesn't have a big enough audience. Okay. And I look at that picture, and I look at the cast, and I look at the people who are involved, and I look at their social media profiles, and between just the people in the film or associated with the film, they've got a social media footprint of over 30 million fans. And you're telling me that this film doesn't have an audience? Mm-hmm. Of course it does. Of course it does. It just doesn't have the audience that you control, right? So you know, by giving those filmmakers and the creators who are involved in that project a mechanism where they can harness their audience that is connected to them through social media to not only watch, you know, to buy and watch the movie, but to actually go out and help promote and sell it to their friends and followers. I think that movie's got an incredible audience. I think that movie could do extraordinarily well. And the studios are right. It won't do well in their system, but it will do well in ours. And so that's what we're talking about. The films that we have coming out next year, the films and we've got a couple of other really cool formats. We're doing a really amazing audio drama right now that's just, I'm super, super excited about that. There's a lot of different things that we're doing, all with high profile talent, you know, with big stars, big names, you know, great music and, you know, big artists attached to on the music side. It's incredibly exciting. I can't wait for the world to start to hear about it. But that's gonna be in 2024.
Wow. And it's just around the corner. So that's awesome. I'm excited to hear more.
And the things are going to accelerate now because the strike is over, to be honest. I mean, that's going to allow us to really start teasing things up a lot more.
That's great. That's really great. Yeah, I mean, one of the questions that I have, and especially after what I just saw when we were at the summit, I got to also say, going to the Film3 summit just a few weeks ago was one of the greatest decisions that we've ever made. It was such a last minute thing. We piled in the car, couldn't even get a plane ticket. It was just so last minute. We rented a freaking van from Budget, like with 10 minutes to spare before they closed their office. I mean, it was crazy. Wow. And then we just piled in and drove through the night and got to you guys. And it was just one of the greatest decisions I ever made, because first of all, I couldn't believe the amount of talent that was in that room. After you get to know the people that are there, you're like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. It was a concentrated amount. I mean, it's not like there were thousands of people there. I mean, we're that early, you know, so it's a small enough group where you can have great conversations with people in between all these incredible panel discussions, just one after the other, just addressing all of these really interesting components. Then you've got the coders room coming in with, I mean, each short film that they put on was like, it was some of the highest quality stuff I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, and so it was one of those things where I was like, okay, this is going to be really something. Yeah. You know,
I'm so glad you felt that way, and I'm so glad you came. I mean, you know, we had spoken a little bit on a couple of Twitter Spaces and things like that, but you know, it was so great to meet you and your husband, and I'm so glad that you felt that way, because that's the way we feel about it. I mean, we call it the Film3 family, and I reference all the time. I think I even said it on stage at the summit. You know, there's this amazing photograph and a whole story around the photograph of these young, filmmakers who were just, they were avant-garde, they were edgy, they were outside of the norm for the most part. But they were all sitting around shooting pool. And in fact, I believe it's at Barney's Beanery on Santa Monica is where that picture is from. And they're all sitting around shooting pool. And it's Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Brian De Palma, all of them just kind of, and they're all together, and the stories about what they used to do. They used to go and shoot pool and have beers and just talk about filmmaking and the art of storytelling. And they would push each other and they challenge each other. And now they're the greatest filmmakers that we know. They're the American new wave filmmakers. And I believe, and the reason why we have sort of been framing this Film3 concept as the next wave of cinema, I think what you saw in that room was several of the people in that room will be the filmmakers that everybody's talking about in 30 years. And it will come from a movement of people who, back in the 60s and 70s when Coppola and Lucas started American Zoetrope, they were focused on changing the way stories were told, the way films were made. But they were stuck in the old system of marketing and distribution, and they just kept getting hammered over and over and over and over again, never making any money, but making movies that mattered and telling stories that mattered. Well, now you've got filmmakers who are pushing the envelope. You saw Coder's Room, the Never Alone Experience, which filmed a full short film right after the summit. All of these people making this great stuff. But now they also are part of a revolution on the side of marketing and distribution as well. And that I think is going to create opportunities for filmmakers that maybe, would never have had a chance in the old system, but people are going to write books about them someday because of the Film3 movement.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel that way. I think we even had this conversation about the group of guys that you just mentioned. I read this book called the Movie Brats is what it's called, and it's those guys. And it goes chapter to chapter, and that book is pretty old too. I think it came out in 78 or something. Yeah. So that's this book is like referencing these guys like it's today, as being these incredible filmmakers. And it's just so interesting how they got their start, and just sort of like, it was exactly like how you were describing, them just getting together, and they were that passionate about it. And they were, like the suits up in the, in the towers, like they don't know how to make film, they don't know how to do what we do. They don't know how to tell stories. They crunch numbers, And so it's like, it is exactly what you're saying. Like now we're returning, not returning, but it's like you said, the next wave of that. And what better time than now, So and everything feels super poised.
Who better than us? And who better than us? I mean, like it's just going to take people deciding to do it. And this is a group that has decided to do it, and that includes you guys.
And what's crazy is that I've been a documentary filmmaker for most of my life, and most of that's what Pippin and I do. But I have tons of stories and short films and just things that I've written, and I've always been like, oh man, that sort of thing takes a budget of the kind of money that I don't have and that I don't feel like I could raise. And now it just really all feels possible, which is sweet.
Yeah. Well, look, and this is kind of, when it comes to that sort of thing, this is obviously what we're doing with Bingeable, but I believe it is something that is applicable to a lot of different methods. But when you eliminate the existing systems of marketing and distribution, which are designed specifically to make movies lose money on paper, right? It's a system of middlemen where 95 cents of every dollar at the box office goes to somebody else before a penny can be used to pay back the cost of production and marketing. It's why movies never make money. I did a show on the extraordinary success of the Barbie movie. which just phenomenal, Greta Gerwig, and how that was produced by Margot Robbie and her husband in their first film for their production company. I mean, it's just amazing story after amazing story, doing $1 billion, having the entire a right-wing media structure going after them, saying it's terrible, saying it's woke, and it's just breaking record after breaking record. And then I sat down on this show and I did the math, and I was like, here's how this works, and here's why Margot Robbie and her husband and their production company will never break even on that movie, right? Because it's designed to not break even. That Hollywood makes money off of movies that lose money. That is the way that system's built. But the very nature of Film3, and in the case of Bingeable, because it is harnessing a direct to consumer model, it takes all those middlemen out. And so you can go to financiers when you're trying to raise money for your film. With this model in mind, you can go to those financiers and say, look, we're going to release this in a way where you're going to make your money back from 16 times the amount of gross revenue of a traditional release, which means you're going to make your money back faster from fewer sales, which means that you have a higher likelihood of not just breaking even, but achieving profit. And it is only because we have built an audience who is passionate about our project and is willing to go out and promote it to their friends and followers, and then get some of those friends and followers to promote it to their friends and followers. And that those ripples going out from the center, and all you're doing is paying a commission for every sale that they create. And then the rest comes back to the financier and the creators. In the case of Bingeable, from $1, gross revenue participation from $1, all on blockchain accounting, so it's completely transparent and immutable. That pitch to financiers, which ultimately I built Bingeable to fulfill the mission that I have on my whiteboard. It's still up there. I look at it every day. If you change the world for creators, creators can change the world. But in order to do that, I knew that we needed to create a system that fixed the problem for independent financiers. If we don't do that, then there's no money for creators like yourself to get your films made. So you being able to go to that financier and saying, look, this model fixes the problems that would have guaranteed that you lost money on the project if you went through the traditional route. And now you can not only break even faster, but get to profit faster as well.
Right. And think about how many times, I don't know what your experience is, but it's probably a little bit like mine, where if you do go seeking funds, via the traditional method, everybody's like, oh, I'll never see a dime back. Why would I, I'll give you some money so that you can make your project, but I'm not expecting it, to be paid back or to see any gain or benefit from that. And people always say, oh, movies are, never make any money, and especially like documentaries never make any money.
Of course. Yeah, no, of course. And they traditionally have not, but that's not because don't confuse that they never make any money with they never make a profit. Right. Mm-hmm. If somebody is distributing your film or your series in any way, trust me, money is being made. It is very rare that studios actually lose money, right? They lose money on paper. There's all sorts of tax benefits. In fact, they often, purchase films and produce films that they know are not going to generate any revenue because they want the tax write-off, right?
Right.
That does happen. But if somebody is giving you money for your film, trust me, that's because they intend to make way more money off of the film than they will ever pay you. And that's just that, look, if every movie on paper loses money, and there's story after story after story, just open up the Hollywood Reporter or Variety, and you're going to see an article about a studio being sued over hiding profits. Happens all the time, right? I mean, the list is incredible. There's the famous, this wound up going around everywhere, but Emma Watson, young young, lovely Hermione Granger from the Harry Potter movies, her accounting statement was leaked and was made public. And according to Warner Brothers, none of the Harry Potter movies have ever made a profit. So she's never gotten a profit participation check, at least, as of a few years ago.
Which is such a crock of bullshit, because
it is. Look, okay, I'm going to tell you one more anecdote, and I don't know how long you have, but I'll try to keep this brief. But it's a classic story.
It's all right. We're good on time, as long as you've got great information to share. We're good on time.
Well, yeah. Okay, you can tell me if this is great information after, and then we can roll credits, or we can keep going.
Okay.
But there's one of my investors and board members happened to work very closely with a legendary billionaire investor. And I won't say who. At one point I believe it was in the early 90s, he got the idea to go to a studio and say, I'm going to set up a production fund. I'm going to fund your movies for you. I'm going to be your bank. This is a major studio. And the studio executive, again, who the CEO, who I will not name, said, he's like, we're going to fuck you, right? You know that. Right. And the guy's like, look, okay, I sure, I hear you, but we'll paper this up. We'll do it right. We'll make sure that we're protected. And he's like, okay, but we're going to fuck you. And so he's like, okay, kid, whatever. That's adorable. He goes back, he gets his team of lawyers. He comes back months later with a stack of paper this high for the contract, just this massive, thick contract of how this was going to work. And the CEO said, you got a pen? And he's like, no, you got to review this. He's like, no, we're going to fuck you. You don't understand. This paper doesn't matter. The system is built the way the system is built. And that guy turned around and walked out and said, forget it. I'm not doing it. So that reality has haunted the financing community for years and years and years and years. And it is why the vast majority of the people that you go to, this is what you're going to hear when you're asked, especially if they're not already in the business of financing productions, right? If you're going to high net worth individual or very sophisticated investors in other categories, even hedge fund guys, private equity guys, people who are just rolling in money. Here's what you will hear over and over and over again. Everybody loses their money in movies in Hollywood, and there's no transparency. I have no idea what kind of money is going to get made. I don't know the business. It's a hit-driven business, blah, blah, blah. You'll hear all of these little talking points, and that's the system that the studios have created for those of us who are trying to do it independently. And that's on purpose. They don't,
and honestly too,
they don't want us to make these movies for anybody but them. Right. And so, again, the only way to you're never going to fix it. You have to replace it. And that's what we're trying to do with Bingeable, specifically and more generally with the Film3 movement.
Yeah. All really great points for sure. And I'm glad you told that story. It's going to be really interesting to see, how things move forward after, now that these strikes have wrapped. Is it going to, I don't even want to ask that question, because the answer is no. Like they're not going to, they're going to abide by the terms that they've negotiated, but it's always going to be the same. Like you were saying, it's not like they've seen the light.
There was a great little anecdote that I heard, and I forgive me, I can't remember who to attribute this to, but I heard it from someone that was part of the SAG team, and in kind of a moment of candor, he was like, if someone steals your wallet and then gives you back $5, you're not $5 richer. They stole your wallet, right? And the reality is that these negotiations, as hard fought as they were, and as essential as they were, I believe that it was the thing that the guilds needed to do this. There needed to be massive change, but their challenge is, and the way I referred to it is, the best case scenario, even if the guilds get everything that they want, when it's all said and done, they're going to end up with just a slightly more polished turd. It's a bad deal to start. and you're trying to make incremental improvements on a bad deal, a deal that is fundamentally, I believe, unfair. And that's not to be all hyperbolic and touchy-feely. That it is, if you just look at it mathematically, it is designed specifically to favor the systems of marketing and distribution on such a dramatic scale that the talent, the system that they had prior, where before streaming, every one of those movies, every one of those TV shows, they all still wind up suing the studio or suing the network because they're hiding profits. That's how it works. The system is designed to hide profits. And any sort of residuals or any sort of overages, as they're referred to in the industry, that are supposed to generate some sort of payment. Most of the producers, most of the talent, they know it's not true. They know it's not real. They know they're hiding profits. If they're getting a residual check, or if they're getting an overage check, profit participation check, they know that it's a fraction of what it really is supposed to be, right? They're doing it because if they don't give them something, they're going to know that they're tricking them, right? My concern with all of this, so I don't want to say it as a concern, because this is a great day. This is a great day. The actors and the writers won. They won the battle against a system that did not want them to win. And so it's a great day, and I could not be happier for my friends. I have, members of my company are SAG-AFTRA actors, and tearful calls of excitement and appreciation for the work of the leadership of SAG to get them with what they got. It's a good day, but the opportunity that the strike created was an understanding by many of the creators themselves that there needed to be an alternative. There needed to be another way. They can't simply be beholden to this old system over and over and over again, because even though they won this round, they still are losing the war, because the model is fundamentally rigged against them. So what I am so enthusiastic about and so excited about, and we have tangible evidence of this. There was an obvious sort of converse. There was there was a palpable shift in the conversation towards the idea of getting back to independent filmmaking. And doing it ourselves and finding new ways and alternatives. Even Fran Drescher, the SAG-AFTRA president, was like, what we need is a new model. We need new models to come along. And they were saying this publicly. So while there's going to be this little moment of euphoria and everybody's hoping to get back to work and excited, the reality is the studios and the AMPTP sort of exposed the real issue here, which is that their system fundamentally treats creators in a way that is unfair. They look at creators as nothing more than a vendor, and they have convinced creators that this is the business model. We pay you to make stuff, and then we make all the money off of what you made. That's it. And that's how the model works. And this at least gave an opportunity for everybody to maybe think, maybe there should be another way, an alternative. And, the evidence of that for Bingeable is the projects that were brought to us during the strike, that are going into production next year, that are going to be released on Bingeable instead of a traditional model, because they had a moment to think, we need another alternative. We present our model to them and they were like, all right, let's do it.
That's awesome. That's so awesome to hear, because my next sort of like question or sentiment was, with everything that you just said, and then with everything that you said earlier about how, this has exposed, the problems. And there's been so much time. It's not like it was a short strike at all for the writers and the actors. They've had plenty of time to think. It just sort of boggles my mind a little bit that nobody was I don't know, and I can't say nobody because obviously I wasn't there, so I don't know. I don't know what happened, but that something bigger didn't emerge from it because they know that they are that they directly influence their audience. That it's not the studios that people are in love with, like you were saying. So it's just sort of like what was missing for them to be able to galvanize in a Film3 kind of a way, that there's so much power that they all have, and they must know. I mean, writers know what kind of power they have, because without writers, there's no entertainment.
Sure.
Sure. So what in your mind is missing from, I guess this is a two-part part question, is that, what's missing from that aspect, but then also sort of what do you think might be the key to mass adoption, or do we need something like that? Or I'll just turn it out to you.
Yeah, well, look, I say this all the time. The entertainment industry generally, but I would say in many ways, business is broader business as well. Well, it's kind of a two-part thing, and I say this stuff quite often. So some who are listening have probably heard me say this, but Hollywood, I've never seen an industry full of more people passionately, aggressively, eagerly racing to come in second place. Nobody wants to be first. There's such fear and such anxiety about, there's another thing that I say is that, in the entertainment industry, inaction carries less liability than action. What do I mean by that? If I just keep churning, if I'm a studio executive, if I'm somebody who's working in the system, if I just keep churning and doing it the way it's always been done and it fails, it's not my fault. It's just that movie didn't work. We did all the old tricks, and the old tricks didn't work this time. If I do something different and it fails, I'm unemployed. I will be fired because it's my fault, because I tried something different and I failed. So what people do, the entertainment industry does not create momentum, it rides it. It's waiting for momentum to build. These are my greatest hits. I talk about this all the time. They are waiting for momentum to build so they can ride that wave. And so during the strike, and even though everybody was talking about we've got to do something different, we've got to try another way. What was missing is that the connective tissue between a new way and financing had not yet been really proven. And so in the case of Bingeable, believe me, we really wished that we could have gone aggressively out and said, here's what we're doing, here's how, but the financing was still being worked on. So that is, we couldn't go out there and show everybody when everybody was looking. We couldn't go out and really bang that drum. The timing just didn't work out right, because you have to have capital. The type of stuff that we're working on, these are high profile films with high profile talent. And I mean, these are, major motion pictures for the most part. Some of them are a little more indie, but they still have something about them that gives them a pretty significant audience opportunity. And so, those require money. These are not things that you can crowdfund. These are not things that you can do, for thousands of dollars. It takes millions. And so, the process of that is challenging and slow. And as much as we wanted to be screaming from the mountaintop of what we were doing, we had to be patient and we had to wait. And even still on some of these things, there's a couple of projects that, God, I wish I could tell you about, that are just, I could not be more excited and more passionate about. But we're still working on getting the funding finished. Right. And we're making great progress. We've got incredible opportunities. Several projects that are already fully funded are intending to go into production next year, and that's incredibly exciting. We're in the process. We've acquired a couple of films that are already finished, and we're in the process of acquiring a release window for another two, which are just, people are going to be very excited when they hear what these projects are, but we can't announce it yet until it's, formally, right, officially done. And so we're we're biting our tongue and biding our time. But again, 2024 is going to be a really, really big year for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so it's really great to hear that you're part of the solution. I mean, you're actually doing something about what's going on out there. And I don't know, to me, it'll just be a matter of time before people find out about Bingeable and what you're doing, because honestly, like you were saying, I think it's also if you were to just hop on the picket line and just be like you said, banging that drum, it might not work out so well, because then you just seem if you spend enough time in this space, right?
They've heard
when you
it
go
all.
and talk to somebody normal, you sound kind of crazy about it,
No, for sure. And I mean, look, you don't want to be the boy who cried wolf. You don't want to be like, oh, we're doing blah blah blah. Oh, it's going to be big, and then poof. And look, we had a movie that we were getting ready to do, and we were ready to start banging that drum and screaming and yelling, and then COVID hit, and that movie fell apart because of that. And so there've been times where it's like the temptation is to go out and hype, but it's just smart to be patient and while I'm happy to tease up some of the things that we've got that are very exciting, we're not making specific announcements yet, because until it's locked and loaded, you just have to be careful. But I will say, thank you for saying what you said about us being a solution. But I want to make sure and really reiterate, we are a solution, not the solution. There are others who are building really, really cool things and really interesting models, and we're excited to champion them as well. I mean, look, there's in Hollywood, there's Paramount, there's Sony, there's Universal, there's MGM, there's Lionsgate. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of companies out there. There will be in Film3 as well, and I want them all to crush it. I really do. A big part of what I've been doing in the Film3 movement is just trying to create a foundation with Jordan's and the squad and that Film3 family, a foundation for those people to build on. I can't wait to see what they come up with.
That's super cool. Yeah, no, it's super kind of you to to champion others as well. I mean, it's the way we're going to get this done, honestly. None of us
is as strong as all of us, right? I mean,
right.
The unions just proved that. So we need to lock arms and lift each other up as well.
Yeah, for sure. Coming in with that Web2 mentality and in a new space isn't gonna, I don't know, at least it just doesn't feel right, so this Absolutely. Is a whole new chance to do things different and to be positive and to really act as though, I mean, I've always felt like there's enough pie for everybody, because we make the pie, so that's just that,
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got a question that came through for you here. Let me see if I can read it for you. Does Netflix purchasing theaters help or hinder Film3 starting stages? I don't know if I'm reading that right.
Well, I had only heard that was primarily a rumor. I mean, if that's actually starting to happen now, that may very well be. Certainly, there are a lot of screens that are dark right now, and I think that's an interesting thing. But look, I am a cinephile. I love going to the cinema. I love experiencing films in a dark room full of people. I love popcorn. Oh, just heaven. I really do. It's where, when I was a kid, when I decided I wanted to make movies, going all the way back to that first part of our conversation, that was because back in those days, growing up, when I was 10 years old, the movie theater was called daycare. You know, my mom would drop me and my sister off at the cinema, and we just sit there and watch movies over and over and over and over again. And that was my film school. That's where I started to break films down and start. So the cinema is to me, it's my church in many ways. There's a dramatic problem. And that is that consumer behavior tends to change over time. And the number one rule in consumer behavior, which as a musician and filmmaker, I don't know where this came from. I guess from my dad, who's kind of a brilliant technologist. I obsess over data, and I look at a lot of different data points. And the most important piece of data that everybody in the entertainment industry needs to understand is that friction is a killer. It absolutely is driving everything about the economics of entertainment today. And there are two great examples of that. One is people going to the cinema. The average American consumer sees less than 2 films in the cinema a year, right? And it is because it is expensive. It takes time. It's a pain in the ass. You have to get everybody in the car. You have to drive. You have to park. You have to pay too much for popcorn. You have to get seats for everybody. You have to tolerate the asshole on his phone. You have to do like all of this stuff. And that turns people off, and it makes the barrier to want to go to the cinema extremely high. You know who can get butts in seats? Taylor Swift, right? Like she did that. And there are lots of people who are doing these direct deals with cinemas. We again, I can't talk too much about it, but we're working on something as well. But the point is that working directly with cinemas, doing something like that, Netflix buying cinemas and things like that, that's not going to change the friction of a night at the movies. It's still hard. It's an event. It's an investment, and most younger consumers limit that type of behavior to maybe just 1 or 2 movies a year. And that's why I've got charts that you can show there's the revenue that's coming from cinemas, and then there's the ticket sales, and they're just dropping and dropping and dropping. And the only reason why the revenue is staying higher is they just keep jacking up the price. Right. So that's an untenable model. So Netflix coming in and buying cinemas, I think it's interesting. It speaks to the filmmakers. It says that Netflix is saying we value the theatrical experience, and that's good. And, certainly people who have films that are award worthy, which we're doing some theatrical runs for some of the films we're going to be putting out as well, so that they can qualify for awards. Many of the awards still require a theatrical run. So
right.
There's value in that. I think it's interesting, but Netflix is a great example. There's also an issue of friction when it comes to subscriptions, subscription video on demand services. Almost 70% of consumers under the age of 45 say that they dip in and dip out of these services based on what they want to watch. They're not putting their credit card down and forgetting about it. Netflix's ideal customer is somebody who subscribes and watches nothing and just forgets that they put their credit card down, like me. But I'm an old guy and I make those stupid decisions. Younger generation, that's not the way they think. They want to watch the new season of Stranger Things. They subscribe to Netflix, cancel. They want to go watch the new Star Wars, spin-off on Disney Plus, subscribe, watch it, cancel, move on. That behavior is fundamentally breaking the subscription video on demand service. And it is because it's a form of friction. I don't want to pay for something I don't want. So I'm going to just pay for what I want. I'm going to watch it, and then I'm going to move on. And again, to me, that creates extraordinary opportunities for filmmakers to go direct to consumers, make it as frictionless as possible, get rid of all the middlemen, change the economics, and tell stories that matter to audiences who care, but make it very simple for them to get and very simple for them to tell their friends about it.
Right on. Yeah. All really good points for sure. I think, what you were saying about, it's so true. It's like, with, the morning show just came out on Apple, right? So it's like, I think I'll wait until all the show, they're all loaded, and then I'll probably get a month of Apple and then drop it after that. Cause I don't.
And think about it.
And the other thing is time, people just Yeah.
And you don't want to wait. I mean, like, so look, when Netflix first started doing series, they did them as bundles. They were bingeable bundles, right? That's the whole season came out at once, right?
Yeah.
Well, what they found as a result of that was that there was a cliff. People would come in, watch all of the episodes, and then cancel, and there would be this cliff like a month after the show came out. And so what did they do? They started releasing like they used to on TV, linear, one episode a week. They all did that. Why? It keeps you subscribed longer. So what do consumers do? They just wait. They wait until all the episodes are out. Then they subscribe, watch them in a weekend, cancel. That's, that's transactional VOD. They're paying $12 to watch a full season of a show that they want to watch, and then moving on to the next thing. So customers always figure out a way around the studios and streamers tricks.
Right.
And that's
because
why
also, yeah. Sorry. No, it's, to your point, just like how a viewer doesn't have a relationship with Paramount, it's like, I don't feel passionate about what Netflix is doing or Hulu or Disney Plus or anything like that. I just want to, it's like, it's not that deep. You know what I mean? I don't need to have a relationship with Netflix. Right. I just, I'm there to watch something because I heard a show was great, or I know a show is going to be great. Yeah. And then I'm out, know? Well, so there's no like, loyalty. There's like that customer loyalty does not exist in this.
Absolutely. Nobody identifies themselves as a Netflix guy. Like, like, oh yeah, I'm so into Netflix, bro. No,
right.
Those words were never said, right? That's not, that's just not the way, especially among younger consumers. It is the shows, it is the stories, it is the talent. That's what they're drawn to.
Right on. Yeah. And what else is interesting too, I was talking to a friend, a couple of days ago. He's a major donor for a lot of, we're in the Portland, Oregon area, and he's a major donor, and he's also serves on the boards of a lot of these organizations for the Portland Opera and, the ballet, and just a variety of, different places that are theatrical. Their, plays are put on there, and, performances, and it's all live and not, on a screen. And he's just like that, first of all, like you were talking about the movie theater, numbers going down, but that's a whole other level of decline in viewership and people coming out, and, nobody goes out to the ballet anymore, and it's really too bad, but it's also, it's $60 a ticket or $80 a ticket. Yeah. I couldn't imagine having to have the responsibility of an enormous theater and, decades long programming, and to just suddenly, I mean, COVID definitely didn't help any of those programs at all, but they were on the decline anyway.
Yeah. Look, I coming through the digital music revolution, the way I did, what movie theaters look like to me? Record stores. They're essentially extremely expensive real estate that is a big, huge box full of air that only makes money if people come in and pay to access what's inside. And if the consumers are like, it's just too big of a pain in the ass, I'll just wait 3 months until it comes out on a service that I already subscribe to. How do you fix that? And there are a lot of really clever things that people are doing. There are people who are trying to create experiences that are much more kind of much more dramatic and much more fun. It's not just watching a movie. It's audience participation. It's kind of a game. You dress up. Turning every movie into a Rocky Horror Picture Show is a thing that I've heard a lot of filmmakers talk about, and I think that's great. I think that's awesome. I think another thing that is going to be really cool and something we're looking at is the idea of touring films, where you just go from city to city, just like a music tour, and you make a much more event-like. but you're showing a film. I think there's some really interesting things that are going to be done, but just like in the movie business, or just like in the music business, where vinyl is kind of a nostalgic throwback, and now it's really the only physical product that is sold in music anymore, as a format. I believe that the cinema will have that kind of niche, nostalgic sort of thing that allows it to keep going, perhaps at a smaller scale. But it also, I hope to a certain extent, it'll change what filmmakers make and the stories that they decide to tell, and how they intend to market and distribute those films, because they understand they got to get butts and seats, and it's not just, is Nicolas Cage on the poster?
Right.
It's got to be more than that.
Right, for sure. So, I mean, in your mind, we've talked about this a little bit, but ideally, what is the title of this show? What is the future of filmmaking, and what does the future of Film 3 look like in your mind?
Well, I mean, what I hope is that the future of Film 3 is one where there is an alignment of interests between financiers, filmmakers, and fans. And rather than those relationships being antagonistic, that they're symbiotic, that they're moving forward in a way that allows stories that perhaps wouldn't have otherwise been told to be told. Filmmakers whose voices have been muted or throttled or disregarded, given platforms to tell stories that matter. I believe that's possible. I think that when you create an economic model that eliminates the people who take 95 cents of every dollar, financiers can be more adventurous, can be more bold, can be willing to tell stories that are smaller. I think when you align everyone's interests, where everybody from the big stars on the screen to the grips and PAs all recognize that they are directly tied to both the short-term and long-term success of a project, it makes them want to make the projects more efficiently. And right now the system is built where our artists and stars, and more importantly, their agents, know they are never going to see another penny after they get that first check, ever. Once they're paid, that's all they're ever going to get paid. So what does that do? It motivates them to make that the biggest number they can possibly get. Well, if you make a system where they get paid every single time somebody watches it, no matter where they watch it, no matter when they watch it, forever, then they're going to be more motivated to get to profit faster, right? Because that means that amount of money increases faster. So creating mechanisms, that's what Film 3, I think, can do, where everybody is, and this is primarily kind of a business to business sort of, B2B sort of mindset, where the industry changes the way it makes, markets, and sells films. But then from a consumer perspective, I want it to be much more interactive. I want people to feel like they are part of the process of storytelling. I want them to champion stories and actually benefit from championing those stories. I think if we can, that's at its heart what Film 3 represents. And I think if we do that, I do truly believe that can change the world. Yeah,
it's so true. Just what you said earlier with the symbiotic relationship between filmmakers, financiers, and the audience is like, it makes so much sense. Like, what a concept.
I mean, it should be so simple, but that's just right. That's just not the way not the way it's worked for 100 years. And that means if we just try it, we automatically have a competitive advantage, because we're in a lane that nobody else is in. And that's, to me, that's not everybody is cut out to blaze trails, but it's what gets me up every morning.
That's awesome. Do you have any advice, for any parting advice or words of wisdom for creators, people that are new to Film 3, or just trying to keep, picking them up and putting them down with their own projects?
Yeah. Well, first of all, find your tribe, come into that community, add value. Don't come in to extract, come to build. And find people, lock arms. That's the squad. That's Film3 as a movement, with squad, kind of the squad being kind of the center of it. That's just a name. It's just a brand. It's not, there's no business behind the squad. There's no money behind the squad. It's just, the Film3 Summit was just a couple people getting together and saying, we're just going to do it. We're going to bring everybody together and create something that adds value to the community. And everybody that came added their own value, their own voice to it. So definitely build a community. The most important thing that you can do is build an audience that wants to support you. And I don't care if it's 10 people and they all live in your house. Start there. Build that community. Give them a reason to go out and tell the world about you and what you're doing. But also, we could do an entire show on the new tech that's coming along that's going to help them make bigger, more beautiful films. I say all the time that, that right now it is entirely possible that there's a kid in his mom's basement in Ohio making a movie that will change everything. And he's doing it on a laptop, while he's on TikTok and while he's playing video games. He's also making a movie. I mean, I think it's going to happen. And so lean into those tools that are going to help you as a filmmaker up your game. But when it's all said and done, find stories that matter, find a community that wants to support you, and then go out there and make those films. Be shooting. You can do it on your phone. You can just every time. The filmmaking, storytelling, it's an apprenticeship model. You have to learn how to do it, and the only way you learn how to do it, you cannot learn it from a book. You cannot learn it from sort of classroom. You can learn some, but that's not going to really teach you anything. You've got to get your hands on it and make stuff. So go out there, shoot little short films with your friends. You don't have to spend any money. Just do stuff. Learn how it works. Learn how to tell stories. Learn how to hit beats in dialogue, and all of those things that are so critical to getting an audience to lean into your storytelling. Just go and do that.
Awesome. All of that was just such a great moment for you to just hit all those points, all those things on my mind. Just storytelling to me is just so important. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen I go to film festivals or whatever, and you see just gorgeous cinematography, but I can't even tell you what the thing is about, and it's because there was so much focus put on that aspect of it, as opposed to you've got a camera, just, it doesn't, look at the Blair Witch Project, look at some of the, Tangerine, which was filmed by the Duplass brothers,
Yep.
There's all sorts of, yes, the cinematography, it's a critical element for sure, but story is everything. And, it can be 15 seconds long, it can be 15 minutes long, or an hour and a half. But like you said, the complexities of the dialogue and just trying to hit all those points and knit them together to make something that your audience can lean into, that's work, that's work, that the only way I think any of that is achieved is through making shit.
Absolutely.
And
look, movies just like music. There is a math to it. The art is the ability to make that math your own.
Yes.
So learn how learn how storytelling is a series of beats. It's just like music. And the ones who are really good at it, they create these movies that have beats to them, and it just brings the audience in. That's just how we are wired as humans, right? So the only way to do that, I could sit here and I can play a song on the guitar right here, that's fine. But if I have not done that 1,000 times, 100,000 times, then it's just, like, who's to say whether or not it's gonna have anything that anybody wants to hear. But if you keep doing it and you keep working at it, you're going to learn how to make that math your own. And that's true with music. That's true with storytelling. Go, study the math, but then do the math over and over and over again.
Yeah, for sure. And the only way, I mean, one of my favorite things about filmmaking, and I only feel this way now, but when I'm in like production on something, I'm always just terrified of it. Is like, can I do this again? You're always, it seems like you're starting over, but in a new way. It's like you're always learning. There's always an opportunity to learn from your previous project, and bringing that knowledge into the new thing that you're working on is obviously going to happen, but there's always a new level where you're like, and maybe it's the imposter syndrome, that we all suffer from too, is that like,
for sure.
can I pull this off again? What if this happens? What if that happens? And then at some point you're able to just quiet that voice and just fucking get it done,
Another one of my little truisms, everybody always says that if it was easy, everybody would do it. But what I always add to that is that but if it wasn't worth it, no one would.
Exactly.
And I'll leave with one movie quote, because I think I've worn out my welcome probably here at this point, but there's a movie quote that I use all the time, from A League of Their Own, when Gina Davis's character is leaving the team and saying it just got too hard, and Tom Hanks' character looks at her and says, it's supposed to be hard. It's the hard that makes it great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's why we do this. That's why I'm here. Hopefully that's why everybody who's listening is here.
Yep. Yeah. And for me, I always say I write because it won't leave me alone. If it would just leave me alone, I would go and do something else, but it's there, just constantly nagging at me.
Absolutely.
So,
yep.
Yeah, all that stuff. So it was such a pleasure meeting you a handful of weeks ago. It's been incredible listening to your voice over the last several months on Twitter. I want to make sure that the people that are listening, whether they're listening through Twitter, which we have a live feed happening there, and we also have one through YouTube. Can you please let us know? I think it's Mondays at 10 a.m. PST is when you have your Twitter space. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's called Building the Next Wave. It's Mondays at 10 a.m. Pacific, and on Twitter Spaces, and we're I can't remember what number episode we're up to now, but yeah, I mean we're hopefully talking about things that are going to help filmmakers and creators understand the business of building an audience and building that next wave.
It's
and
awesome.
Then the squad also does other spaces, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays. So there's lots of opportunities to connect with us. My handle is S_bingeable on Twitter, and look me up, and then also follow Film3 Squad. The handle is @Film3 Squad. And join the tribe, come in and let's tell great stories.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for your time. And I couldn't I can't sing enough praises about you guys at the squad, and just all the exciting things that are happening there between the squad and Coders Room and everything. It's just, the future looks so rad from where I'm sitting, and
we're happy to have you be part of it, and you and your husband are awesome, and can't wait to see what you guys are doing, what you will do. The future's bright because we're all in it.
Thanks. Yeah, for sure. And I hope to be able to work with you soon. It'll be it'd just be a next level experience for sure.
Let's do it. I love Portland. I'm happy to have an excuse to go up there again. So
all right, let's do that then.
All right.
Cool. Good. All right. Well, I'll sing us out here. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, I lost my spot in my notes. All right. Here we go. You can catch the next process live on Thursdays at 3 p.m. PST. They stream live on FarcydeTV.com, which is an amazing network with something to offer everyone. from the all day and all night Sunday DJ sets with Deep Soul, DJ Augie, and Overseas Dreams, just to name a few. And more from the Ink Pulp podcast, Splendid Radio, as well as Truth Seekers, and product demos from Lab Life Pro, as well as documentary programming such as our Process docuseries. Hey, how about that? The channel is going to be going 24/7 soon, and that's all with the help of amazing supporters like yourself and the Pharcyde TV family. So don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, do all that fabulous stuff, especially if you like what you see and hear today with us. And so thank you so much, Stephen.